Hello everyone. Welcome back to Broken Heart Stories. Tonight I have a story that might sound like something you've felt before. A story about love, about promises, about nights spent dreaming together, and the heartbreak of waking up alone. You see, love doesn't always break like thunder. Sometimes it fades quietly, like a candle in the wind, until you suddenly realize the flame is gone. And that's exactly what happened to Emily. Emily wasn't extraordinary in the way people usually describe beauty. She didn't have the kind of looks that would stop strangers on the street. But she had something better: kindness. She was the kind of person who remembered birthdays, who stayed awake when you were sick, who believed in love stories even when the world kept telling her love was broken. And then came Daniel, the man who made her heart beat faster with just a smile. He wasn't perfect, nobody ever is, but to Emily, he felt like home. He was funny in a quiet way, with jokes that only she understood. He had this habit of looking at the sky whenever he was lost in thought, as if the stars could answer his questions. And when he held Emily's hand, she felt like maybe, just maybe, forever was possible. Their love wasn't built on grand gestures. No fancy cars, no diamond rings. It was built on little things. Morning texts that simply said, "I miss you." Coffee dates at the corner cafe where the barista already knew their order. Walks in the park where Emily talked about her dreams, and Daniel actually listened. At least, in the beginning he did, because love, my friends, is fragile. At first it's soft and warm and beautiful, but if you stop watering it, if you stop caring, it wilts. And slowly, almost silently, Emily began to notice the cracks. Daniel wasn't laughing at her jokes anymore. He wasn't listening to her dreams the way he used to. The coffee dates became shorter, the phone calls became fewer, and sometimes he just wasn't there at all. Emily told herself it was just stress. Work, maybe, or life. She told herself all couples go through this. She told herself love doesn't just vanish. But deep down, somewhere in the pit of her heart, she felt it. He was slipping away. And one night, that fear came true. Emily always believed that love would arrive when she least expected it. She wasn't searching desperately. She wasn't chasing after someone to fill her empty spaces. She was simply living her life, working long hours at a bookstore downtown, coming home to her tiny apartment, cooking dinner for one, and scrolling through old songs that made her heart ache with nostalgia. And then Daniel walked into her life. It was nothing magical, nothing dramatic. He wasn't riding a white horse, and she wasn't wearing a ball gown. He simply came into the bookstore one rainy afternoon. He was soaked, water dripping from his jacket, hair plastered to his forehead. Emily remembered how annoyed she was at first, because he accidentally knocked over a small display of poetry books. But then he looked up at her, apologizing with a sheepish smile, and for some reason, she laughed. That laugh changed everything. Daniel began stopping by the store more often. At first, he said it was because he liked reading there, but Emily noticed that he didn't always pick up a book. Sometimes he just stood by the counter, asking about her day. He would tease her about the way she always tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, or how she always corrected people's grammar without even realizing it. Soon, it became their thing. Every Thursday evening, Daniel would wait outside the store until she closed up, and then they would walk together in the quiet streets of the city. They shared stories about childhood, about dreams, about the future they wanted. Daniel admitted he hated thunderstorms because they reminded him of nights when his parents fought. Emily confessed she sometimes felt invisible, like people only saw her smile but never her sadness. And somehow, telling each other these secrets made them feel less alone. The first time he held her hand, it was so simple that Emily almost missed it. They were crossing the street, and without a word, Daniel's fingers found hers, warm, steady, safe, and he didn't let go, even when they reached the other side. That night, Emily lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart racing with something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. From there, everything unfolded like a dream. Coffee dates at the little cafe on Fifth Avenue, where Daniel always ordered black coffee, and Emily teased him for drinking liquid bitterness. Weekend walks through the park, where he carried her bag even though she insisted she could do it herself. Long, quiet nights where they sat on her couch watching old movies, her head resting on his shoulder. Daniel wasn't perfect. He could be stubborn, impatient, sometimes even distant. But when he looked at Emily, she felt seen, truly seen. And in a world where she had always felt invisible, that meant everything. Months passed. Seasons changed. Their love deepened in small, unspoken ways. Daniel gave her a key to his apartment. Emily left her sweater on his chair. They started planning holidays together. It was as if life had finally given Emily the one thing she thought she'd never have. Someone to share it with. Her friends noticed the glow on her face, the softness in her smile. Even her co-workers teased her for humming songs while organizing books. And Emily didn't mind, because for once, she wasn't pretending to be happy. She really was, but love is tricky. It doesn't always warn you when the storm is coming. At first, it was little things. Daniel stopped texting, "Good morning." He canceled dinner plans, saying he was too busy at work. He grew restless during their conversations, distracted, his mind elsewhere. Emily told herself it was temporary. Everyone goes through phases, she thought. Relationships aren't always fireworks and roses. Sometimes they're quiet, sometimes they're heavy, and she believed, no, she needed to believe, that their love was strong enough to survive it. She didn't know it then. But the cracks had already begun to spread. Love rarely ends in one big explosion. More often, it slips away quietly, like sand falling through your fingers. And for Emily, that's exactly how it felt. At first, it was the little things. Daniel stopped texting her good morning. Their evening walks became shorter, sometimes disappearing altogether. The little notes he used to leave for her, "Don't forget breakfast," or "I miss you already," were gone. Emily told herself it was normal. Relationships aren't always fireworks. People get busy, work gets stressful. She convinced herself it was just a phase, something that would pass. But deep down she knew. Love doesn't just disappear overnight. It fades when someone stops trying. One night, Emily waited at their cafe, the little place on Fifth Avenue where they had shared countless coffees and countless laughs. She ordered his usual black coffee, placed it across from her, and sat there, waiting. 10 minutes, 20, an hour. Daniel never came. Her phone buzzed only once. Sorry, can't make it. Busy. Emily stared at the message for what felt like forever. Busy. That was the excuse now. She told herself not to cry in public, but the sting in her chest was too strong. And for the first time, she felt truly alone, even though the cafe was crowded with strangers. Weeks passed, and the distance only grew. Daniel's laughter was gone. His eyes, once so bright when they looked at her, seemed tired. Or worse, distracted. He answered her questions with one-word replies. He kissed her goodnight without feeling, and then came the lies. Emily wasn't stupid. She noticed when his stories didn't match. When he said he was working late, but came home smelling of perfume that wasn't hers. When he hid his phone screen as she walked into the room. When his smile looked guilty instead of happy. At first, she confronted him gently. Daniel, is something wrong? With us? But Daniel only sighed, rubbing his forehead. You're imagining things, Emily. Stop overthinking. Not everything has to be a problem. That's what he always said. You're imagining things. You're being dramatic. You're too sensitive. And slowly, Emily began to wonder if maybe he was right. Maybe she was too sensitive. Maybe she was overthinking. She started apologizing for asking questions, for wanting attention, for needing love. But the truth was simple. She wasn't crazy. She was lonely. One night, Emily found the courage to look through his phone while he slept. She hated herself for it, but her heart needed answers. And there it was, messages, dozens of them. Not work, not friends. Another woman. Emily's world shattered. Every word on that screen was a dagger to her chest. Sweet messages he hadn't sent her in months. Words of affection he once reserved only for her. Promises of weekends together. Jokes she didn't understand because they weren't meant for her. Her hands shook so badly that she dropped the phone. The sound woke Daniel. He sat up, groggy, confused. And then he saw the screen in her hand. For a moment, silence filled the room. And then, instead of guilt, instead of apologies, he simply said, I told you not to snoop. This is your fault. Emily felt her chest tighten, her breath vanish. Her fault? How could it be her fault? She gave him everything. Her love, her loyalty, her time, her trust, and yet, here he was, blaming her for finding the truth. The fight that followed was ugly. Her tears, his anger, her voice breaking as she asked, Do you even love me anymore? His cold reply, I don't know, 3 words. That's all it took to break her heart completely. After that night, things never went back to normal. Daniel grew colder. Emily grew quieter. Their love, once so full of warmth, now felt like ashes. But still, she stayed. Because that's what broken hearts do. They cling to hope even when it hurts. They believe in the possibility of healing, even when the wound is too deep. Emily told herself he would change. That the Daniel she fell in love with would come back. That he would realize she was the one who had always been there. But deep down, she knew. The man she loved was already gone. The night it all ended wasn't stormy. There was no thunder, no lightning, no dramatic sky to match the pain inside Emily's chest. It was just quiet. Daniel came home late, as usual. His shirt smelled faintly of perfume that wasn't hers. His eyes didn't meet hers. He dropped his keys on the table, muttered something about being tired, and headed straight to the bedroom. Emily followed, her heart pounding. She couldn't keep pretending anymore. She couldn't keep swallowing the silence, the lies, the distance. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We need to talk." He sighed, sitting on the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. "Emily, not tonight. Please. I'm exhausted." Her tears were already threatening to fall, but she didn't stop. "No, tonight. Because if I don't say this now, I'll break." Daniel looked at her then. Really looked, but his eyes were cold. "What is it you want me to say?" he asked flatly. "That I don't love you? That I found someone else? Is that what you want to hear?" The words hit her like a blade. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You found someone else?" she whispered. Daniel didn't answer. His silence was enough. Emily's chest ached so badly she thought she might collapse. Her knees felt weak, her breath shallow. She sat down on the chair in the corner, staring at him, her voice breaking like glass. "Do you know what hurts the most?" she said softly. "Not that you lied, not that you cheated, but that somewhere along the way you stopped choosing me. I gave you everything, Daniel. I believed in you when no one else did. I loved you even when you didn't deserve it. And still, it wasn't enough." Daniel stood, his expression unreadable. He grabbed a small bag from the closet, already packed. Emily's eyes widened. "You were planning to leave," she whispered, horror filling her voice. He didn't deny it. "I can't do this anymore," he muttered. "We're not happy, Emily, you know it. I know it, and she makes me feel alive again." The final dagger. Emily couldn't move. She sat frozen, her hands trembling, her heart screaming inside her chest. She wanted to beg him to stay. She wanted to hold him, to remind him of the nights they laughed together, of the mornings they shared coffee, of the promises whispered in the dark. But she didn't, because she knew it wouldn't matter. Daniel slung the bag over his shoulder. For a moment he paused at the doorway. Maybe a part of him felt guilty. Maybe a part of him remembered the woman who had loved him more than anyone else ever could. But he didn't look back. Not once. The door clicked shut behind him, and just like that, Emily was alone. Silence filled the apartment, heavy, crushing. She could hear the clock ticking in the living room. She could hear her own sobs, echoing in the emptiness. She walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. Each one was a reminder that life was still moving, that people were laughing, loving, living, while her world had just ended. Emily wrapped her arms around herself, as if trying to hold together the pieces of her broken heart. In that moment, she realized something painful but true. Sometimes, love isn't enough. Sometimes, no matter how much you give, no matter how much you fight, The person you love will choose someone else, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. That night, Emily cried until the sun came up. She cried until her throat burned and her eyes were swollen. She cried until there were no more tears left. And when the morning light finally filled the room, she whispered the words she never thought she'd say. He left me. Forever. The morning after Daniel left, Emily's apartment felt heavier than ever. The chair he used to sit in was empty. The sweater he once borrowed still hung on the back of the door. His toothbrush sat untouched by the sink, like a ghost of the life they had shared. Emily walked through the silence, each step echoing against the walls, reminding her that she was truly alone now. But somewhere beneath the weight of her grief, a small, fragile truth began to take root. Surviving heartbreak was possible. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be quick. But one day she would breathe again without pain. She sat by the window, holding a cup of coffee with shaking hands. And for the first time in months, she didn't check her phone for his messages. She didn't wonder where he was, or who he was with. She simply let the quiet fill the space where his voice used to be, because sometimes healing doesn't begin with answers. It begins with acceptance. Daniel had left. And Emily was still here. Her heart was broken, yes. But it was still beating. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough for now. And that, my friends, was Emily's story. A story of love, of promises, and of a goodbye she never saw coming. If you've ever loved someone who didn't love you back, if you've ever given everything only to be left behind, then maybe you understand Emily's pain. And if you do, let this remind you, you are not alone. Every broken heart has a story. Thank you for listening tonight. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe to Broken Heart Stories for more emotional journeys like this one. Because love doesn't always last forever, but stories do.